key, a universal key to many.
Understandable. Creative. Effective.
Interesting.
Learn the Ielts with us. Good day, everybody. The program Ielts Secrets is live again. If you are watching us, you have made the right choice. Today, we will teach you how to write task 1. Especially, we have a very helpful lesson about bar chart and their language. Mr. Farouk is our guest today, and he has been teaching us lessons for many years, and his students are showing high results as well. And today he will share the key secrets of writing bar chart reports. So dear viewers, continue watching and being with us. Good day, Mr. Farouk. I am very happy to see you here. Welcome to our studio.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
So, first of all, I want to ask you full information about yourself and your IELTS history fully.
I started to learn IELTS about 4 years ago. I needed it to submit my documents to study at Westminster University in Tashkent. And I first studied with some teacher from Navai. He was really helpful. He taught me how to do basic things, how to solve reading and listening questions. And I think he inspired me to continue studying and to achieve high results. So far, I've taken IELTS about 6 times. The first time I took IELTS was in the pandemic period. As you remember, we didn't have any opportunity to take an ordinary test, so we had an alternative option to take an IELTS indicator. So I was one of the few Uzbek people who took IELTS indicator. Then I took IELTS 5 times more. I took 4 CD tests and 1 paper-based test.
What were your scores?
When I took the indicator test, I got a 7.5. Then all 4 attempts that I took on computer, I received an overall 8. And the last time I took a paper-based test, I finally achieved an 8.5.
Very good result. Could you show your latest certificate to our learners?
Yes, here it is. As you may see, I've scored 99 for listening and reading and 7.5 for both writing and speaking.
You have a perfect result on listening and reading exam, right?
Yes, as you may see. So.
By the way, how long have you been learning English?
Before I started studying, especially for IELTS, I've been learning English for about 9 years at school. We had a really good education system dedicated to English in our school back in the day in Navai. And I think that the teachers that worked there really helped me and I got some basic information, some basic knowledge about English language.
You know, today we'll pay attention more how to write task 1 essays, task 1 reports. Let's talk about the structure. Most of students have a struggle to understand the structures of it. Could you give some brief information about the structure of writing task 1, firstly?
Well, for writing task 1, there is quite a different structure if you compare it with writing task 2 essays. First of all, the introduction is usually 1 sentence long. It's just a paraphrase of the topic of the task you are given, which is called rubric. Then you are supposed to give an overall statement, which is basically like a conclusion for an essay. And only then you write your body paragraphs. So I think there are 3 main parts in writing task 1 reports: introduction, overview paragraph, and body paragraph.
When it comes to overall paragraph of writing task 1, most students have a misunderstanding. Sometimes they can give their own opinion on this part. However, I see the teachers that recommend their students to give some predictions when their students have to write about the future trends. What is your opinion? Is that true?
The most important points you always have to keep in mind is that whenever you're writing a task 1 report, you cannot provide any additional information. If there is something written on the graph itself, you can describe it, but you cannot give your opinion, you cannot try to establish a causal relationship, and you also cannot make predictions if this information is not on the graph.
I guess some learners have a difficulty to choose the right place for overall part. They have some doubt to write the overall part after the introduction or at the end of the writing. So what is the most suitable place for overall part?
Well, in terms of assessment, it doesn't really matter if you write an overall statement right after the introduction or at the end of your report. But there is a problem of time management because many students, like the majority of them, are told to write task 1 at the end after they have finished task 2. So to avoid not making it and to avoid losing some time, they should probably write an overview statement directly after the introduction, because even if they do not write body paragraphs, but they did write an overview, they will still get a pretty decent band score.
In terms of bar chart, most students have a difficulty choosing the main points, and it may affect, their task achievement. Because of it, their results may be lower than they expected. So could you give some advices to choose the main points?
Well, first of all, we need to point out that there are two main types of task 1 bar charts. The first type is like line graph. It describes the changes over time, so there are a lot of years. And if you're given such a bar chart, you can easily write it in a style of line graph. So you choose the highest change, the lowest change. You choose which area or which category went up higher or went down lower. You may also pinpoint the highest and the lowest values. But I guess the majority of task 1 bar charts are focusing mainly on comparison. So if you are seeing something really similar or something really distinctive, you really need to put this in your overview statement, because this is what you are looking for.
Mr. Farouk, I want to conclude our conversation with your advice for teachers. How can they teach their students to write essays or writing task 1s?
Well, it's a problem that I experience as a teacher as well. And I think that the thing we should all do is to first improve our own knowledge. If we ourselves can produce a pretty good piece of writing, either task 1 or task 2, then we will be able to show our students how to do this. And we also need to understand that not every student has a good understanding of language. We need to learn the problems that our students make and work with them personally. For example, when you only start explaining writing to your students, you cannot know for sure how well they write, like how well they construct some simple sentences and structures. And in the first lessons, maybe in the first weeks or months, you need to work with them individually. You need to give them personal assessments, and you need to provide personal feedback. And only then, I think, will they be able to improve.
Mr. Farouk, thank you for your conversation. It would be useful for our learners as well as teachers who are watching us. Now I would like to invite you to our smartboard, and we hope you will share the secrets of writing bar charts in detail in your lesson. Dear viewers, take your notebooks, pen and pencils. A very useful lesson is waiting for you.
Hello, dear viewers. Today we will be discussing with us how to write an Ielts Academic Writing Task 1 bar chart. It is a pretty common problem for many students, and I think that I have some useful tips for you, and you will learn a lot. Let's start. Okay, what will you see in an Ielts Writing Task 1 bar chart? In Writing Task 1 bar chart, there is always two axes, an x-axis and an y-axis. depending on what type of bar chart you are given, the vertical one or horizontal one, they switch their roles. One axis, usually x-axis, will always describe the categories you need to compare. For example, it may be countries, it may be age groups, it may be subjects, it may be sports, and so on. And the other one, usually in y-axis, will show you the values in which you should compare. For example, thousands of dollars, hundreds of people, and so on. And each category will hold some different items. For example, if we take countries as categories, we can have different types of products in each country. And to differentiate every item from each other, we are given some color scheme. For example, say meat may be colored red, while some other products may be colored green or blue. Let's move. As you can see here, we have a vertical bar chart. All our bars go from down to up. As you can see, there are 5 categories. It is years, and each category has 5 different items, depending on the genre of fiction books. As you can see, on y-axis, we are given values in thousands of dollars, and each horizontal line represents $20,000. Okay, we need to compare how much money a certain bookshop earned by selling different types of fiction books. Okay, let's move. Okay, we need also to keep in mind there are 2 main types of bar charts. They may be change over time graphs and fixed graphs. For change over time graphs, on the bottom axis, on the x-axis, we are given years. For example, as an example showed before, we had years like 2008, 2009, and so on. When we have such a bar chart, we can easily describe it as a line graph because we can simply connect the bars with a line, and we will have a line graph. But we need to keep in mind that the main objective of bar chart is to compare categories. So whenever we're writing a report on bar chart, even if we have a change over time graph, we still should focus more on comparing the data rather than on describing the changes. You can still use the words like increase or decrease, but the main objective for you should be to compare the data with each other. The second type of bar charts is fixed graphs. In this type of graphs, there are usually at most 2 or 3 years, and usually only 1 year available to you. The main point here is only to compare different types of data. For example, you can be given a graph showing how male and female students responded to some certain questions in 1 year, for example, in 2008. You can never use words like increase and decrease for these types of graphs because we are not given some changes. You can only compare the data with each other, and the main objective here also is to compare and find some similarities and differences. So here are some examples of change over time graph and comparative graphs. As you can see here, we have a change over time graph, and we are given some years from 2011 to 2017. We can use a pencil or a pen to connect these points and to get a line graph. When we do this, we can describe this bar graph as a line graph and we'll have no problems. But we still need to compare the lines as if they were a comparative graph. We cannot just describe the changes, we also need to describe the comparison. For example, we always need to say that women here were higher than men, and men were higher than children. As you can see in the second graph, it is a comparative graph. There is not a year presented here, but you will probably be given a certain year to choose a tense, usually past tense. Here we have 2 age groups from 80 to 30 years old and from 45 to 60 years old. And these 2 age groups are compared in terms of factors affecting their work performance. Again, these red lines, these red dots cannot be connected in a single line because they are not describing something single. They're describing some different figures, so we cannot use trend description language for this graph. Let's move on. Well, the first part for any task 1 report is writing an introduction. An introduction cannot give you a higher band score, but if you write it poorly, it will give you a low band score. So you will need to make sure that you write this paragraph well. Sometimes I see a lot of students, even a lot of teachers, using some certain words, some certain synonyms that they can use in a paraphrase. But you also need to keep in mind that not all of these words are suitable in the context. And many of them cannot be really used in task 1. For example, it's always okay to say show. For example, the bar chart shows the factors that most affect work performance. But you cannot use the words like depict, elucidate, or demonstrate, because these words have some certain meaning behind them, and they need to be used in a correct context. In order to avoid such problems, you always need to check the meaning and the usage of certain words. And you should never use any word without truly understanding how and where to use it. Even if your teacher says so, you need to double check. Okay. Then, an effective introduction. Well, many students write introductions pretty similarly to each other. They use the same words, the same structures, and all the task 1 reports start basically the same. And many students feel this is a problem because they want to be more individual, they want to be creative. The main point here is that you will have to start with writing some simple, mechanical, and similar to other students' introductions. You cannot just start by creating something new. In order to be creative, you first need to understand the basics. So you need to start by writing a very mechanical and simple introduction. And only then you can move to being more creative. You also need to keep in mind that you may overshoot and use the words that I have just shown you. Always double check the words and phrases you want to use because this will affect your band score. It is always better to use simple words and simple grammar that you are sure about than using some fancy words and fancy grammar that you've just learned and cannot really use. Okay, then for example, we're given this rubric. This is the phrase that we're given in the task right before the bar chart itself. The bar chart provides information about how often people in the USA ate fast food from 2003 to 2013. This is a simple phrase and we can paraphrase it really easily. We just need to substitute some words and replace them with the synonyms. For example, we can say the given bar chart shows the frequency with which people living in the USA consumed fast food between 2003 and 2013. There is not anything fancy, there's not anything creative. You just do what you're supposed to do. And many students will write basically the same. You need to write this kind of introductions because this is the first step in your preparation, in your progress. Okay, now we're switching to the most important part of your report. In every task 1 graph or diagram, it is always important to provide a clear overview. If you do not provide a clear overview, if you miss any point, any of the main features, you're going to give a lower score for the task achievement criterion. In order to be able to find and identify all the main features, you need to take your time and analyze the graph. You may use a pen, you may use a pencil, you may write or draw on the graph. You can do everything imaginable just for you to understand the main features. And also keep in mind that this is more of a comparative diagram. Even if you have some years, you need to look at comparisons. If comparison weren't the main topic, the main focus of your bar graph, then you would have been given a line graph. If you are not given a line graph, it means that you need to write about comparisons and differences. Okay, the main and the most usual things that students can write in the overview for task 1 bar chart is to write about the highest and the lowest figures. You can also write about the figures or categories that look the same. For example, they may have the same U shape, or they may all have this rising shape. If you have a lot of figures that look like each other, then you certainly need to write this in your overview. Another function, a really important function of your overview, is to provide a plan for your body paragraphs. If you write a good overview, then it means that you will have no problems writing your body paragraphs. And all the time you need to spend on thinking should be spent on planning your overview, because overview, once again, is the most important part of your task 1 report. Now we need to talk about another important aspect of your overview and your body paragraphs. It is grouping. You need to be able to group some different kinds of information into separate groups and then to describe them as one group. For example, here you can see that every day and never are pretty small, so you can combine them. But if you look closely at the bar chart, you will notice it is better and more logical, more rational to write and to separate the data according to the years. If you look at 2003 and 2006 figures, the first 2 bars, you can see that they follow exactly the same patterns. They have their maximum at once a week, and then the frequency will drop. And if you can see the figure for 2013 stands out, it has its maximum at once or twice a month, which means that it cannot be grouped together with 2003 and 2006. Spend as much time as you need on grouping and planning your overview, because this will make the rest of the process much easier. For example, we can see here that the main point is that 2003 and 2006 have the largest proportion at once a week or more frequently. So every day plus several times a week plus once a week makes up more than 50%. But if we look at 2013, we have quite a different picture. We have the majority of people watching it once or twice a month or even rarer. So you need to separate this kind of data into 2 distinct groups. You need to write about 2003 and 2006 in one sentence and in one body paragraphs, and you need to write about 2013 in another part. If you can see another interesting points, you can also add them to your overview. For example, here I wrote about everyday and never. They constitute the very low percentages, practically the lowest percentages shown on the graph. If you see something like this, it's really important for you to include all of such information. Let's move on. Well, for body paragraphs, you need to understand that they're just an extension of your overview. You just need to write a more detailed description of what you've just written in the overview. You don't need to add anything new, and the information in your body paragraph should follow exactly the same order as you use it in your overview paragraphs. So if you started your overview with 2003 and 2006, the first body in body paragraphs should be about the same years. And if you concluded with the last year should be written about in the last paragraph. So let's move to the example. Here we have 2 body paragraphs. In the first body paragraph, I described 2003 and 2006. Notice that my description here starts from the very high figures and move to the very low figures. So I practically start from the very top and go to the very bottom. This is what you should do when you describe comparative charts, bar graphs, or bar charts. You need to start with the highest figure, highest proportion, and then you need slowly to progress to lower and lower proportions. I did the same, exactly the same, in the second body for 2013, and I just used the word however to link the 2 paragraphs together. We can also use such linkers to show that these body paragraphs are connected to each other. They are not different graphs, they are part of the same graph, and they basically influence each other, and you compare them with each other. So this is all what I wanted to tell you. Thanks for your attention, and I hope these tips and this lesson would help you to achieve a high band score for IELTS Task 1, especially for IELTS Task 1 bar graphs.
So dear viewers, we have learned how to write task 1 more time and gained useful information bar charts language. Continue watching, we have another guest, Miss Farouq's student, Mr. Daniel. Good part of the day, Mr. Daniel. It's nice to see you here. Welcome to our studio.
Hello, I'm glad to see you too. It's an honor to be here today.
Thank you. Thank you for your visit too. As information, Daniel has taken 8 band score on the IELTS exam recently, and today he will share the secrets of achieving this score. First of all, I congratulate you on gaining really high result on the IELTS exam. Please introduce yourself firstly and share your difficulties, troubles that you faced during your preparation process.
Okay, my name is Daniel. I'm 20 years old. I virtually had no troubles in preparing for my exam because I had quite a lot of time learning English. So that's it, I guess.
How long have you been learning English?
Well, I've been learning English since the first grade, but I seriously took it as a subject in my, I guess, 7th or 8th grade.
So, how many times did you pass the exam in order to get the 8 band score?
I passed IELTS exam 2 times. First one was the 7, and the second, as you know, is an 8 score.
Very good results, both your attempts, right? Your both attempts. So, could you show your latest result to our viewers?
Okay, here it is. I got 8.5 for both listening and reading sections, and 7 for both writing and speaking sections.
Very good result. The most interesting questions of today's program for you. How was your exam? On which skills did you have difficulties, and which skill did you seem easier?
Well, overall, the exam was quite smooth because I have passed the exam before, and my teacher, Mr. Farouq, he kind of prepared me well for this exam. I knew different tricks and different obstacles that I will need to overcome.
How was your writing exam? On writing task 1, what kind of report did you have to write?
The writing was quite difficult for me. It is always quite difficult for me because I'm not a good writer, actually. Before studying with Mr. Farouq, I got I guess 6 for writing constantly. But after his tips, I got a 7 score.
So could you share your teacher's tips to help to improve your writing results?
Well, there are several constructions for the sentences and for different parts of the writing tasks. That's a lot of speaking. I will just shortly say that in the Everest Learning Center, Mr. Farouq teaches really good lessons on writing. Yeah.
As you said, you had a problem with writing. At the beginning, you might have some problem to start writing reports, right?
Yes.
And some students spend too much time to learn these reports. From what did you start to write the reports, and what was the big help for you to adapt writing reports?
Well, the main thing, as I said before, is practice and practice. By practicing all of the tasks, not only writing, you can get the scores you want. It's just a matter of time for your practice. There is no too much in that section.
What kind of grammatical books did you use to improve your writing?
Well, answering that question, I'm quite a bad example of a student for the books because I actually never seriously read the writing books. All knowledge for the writing section I got from my teachers, and I guess that's it. I'm a bad example for a writing books student, I would say.
If you want to say something to your teachers, to your relatives, to your parents, maybe you want to say hello to your close friends, you are welcome.
Yeah, I want to say thanks to everyone who helped me in my journey to the IELTS score I got, and pretty much that's it. I have plenty of acquaintances and friends that I want to thank, but I will thank them in private, I guess.
Thank you. Dear learners, we have tried to share useful information by the help of our program. If it is useful for you, we are very happy. Continue watching our program. In our next program, we will share the key secrets of listening part of the IELTS exam. Now we have to say goodbye. Take care of yourself. Continue watching our program and learn the key secrets with us. Bye!
Bye!
The key, a universal key to memory.
Understandable. Creative. Effective.
Interesting.
Learn the IELTS with us.